Hey guys, over here. Welcome to Shop Foreman Garage. Today we are looking at this 2009 Mazda 6. It has a bunch of issues going on, and it's got check engine light on, traction control. The battery light is on. It is flashing a bunch of messages up on the dashboards, the smart city brake support, what else, front camera, pull over right now, the battery's not charging. So I'm gonna get into this and find out what's going on. It does not drive very well. It seems like it runs fine, just starting it up and letting it run, but when you start to drive it, you barely put your foot on the gas and it takes off, and then it bucks and it stops and it comes and it stops, and it's doing all kinds of weird stuff. So let's get into this and figure out what's going on. Okay, I got the vehicle hooked up to the IDS right here, and got a bunch of codes here, and I cleared the codes, and this is what reset, and I'll just go skim through a couple of these. You got invalid data received from ECM PCM in the ABS system, and invalid data received from the ECM PCM for the front for the forward sensing camera, and invalid data received from anti-lock brake system for the forward sensing camera, internal control torque calculation performance for the PCM, software incompatibility, ECM PCM. This is a smart city brake support, Mazda radar cruise control system as a software incompatibility. Vehicle dynamics control module. What the heck is that? It's a start-stop unit. Oh, Pat's transmitter. So the transmitter's low. The transmission control module says that invalid data received from the ECM PCM. So there's something weird going on with this. But the last time this vehicle was here, which was back in April, and it's end of November right now, the customer came in saying that they had no power, and they couldn't drive the vehicle very fast on the road. And I looked at the vehicle, and it had a ignition coil that was arcing due to a cracked spark plug, something like that. I can't remember exactly. I recommended replacing all plugs and one ignition coil, and the customer declined it, and they limped their vehicle out of here. That was the last time I saw it. So I'm guessing he's got some kind of aftermarket plugs, coils and stuff in there right now. So let's check that out. Okay, let's get under here. And it looks like we got new ignition coils, fairly new. Let me get a flashlight. Well, let me turn my light. I have a light. Yeah, I don't see any markings, and so if this was a Mazda coil, it would say Mazda right there on the side. So yeah, nope, these are all aftermarket coils, so that could be an issue, seriously. And I know that it's not misfiring. It is not misfiring. So why do I say it could be an issue? Well, let's get these spark plugs out, and let's swap them over and see what kind of plugs it has. And I have a vehicle that I can swap plugs and coils over that have Mazda spark plugs and Mazda coils, that we can just do a quick check real quick, see if we can diagnose it easily, rather than getting into the flow charts and everything as to what the heck these codes are. And while I do that, I'll tell you why I think, you know, that could be an issue. Okay, so I have to borrow the ignition coil. Get out of there. I gotta borrow the ignition coils out of this CX-5 because these ignition coils are aftermarket. Yeah, there is no markings on this. There's definitely no Mazda markings on any of them. And on top of that, we got these Autolite spark plugs. And these plugs, I'm guessing, are fairly new, but the porcelain's cracked in them. You know, I don't know why. I mean, they're Autolite plugs, but that's not the reason why they're cracked. They're just, you know, maybe the customer, when he put these spark plugs in, he cracked them, he tightened them too much. They weren't too tight, but yeah, I don't see any carbon tracing on them yet, but they definitely have cracks. And this one looks okay. This one has one pretty good crack there. This one has two cracks. This one has the start of a crack right there. And I'll get you in, I'll let you look and see what I'm talking about. Why are we replacing the ignition coils? So to try and figure out what the heck is going on here, I had a CX-5 just about a week ago that it had the same kind of issue where it was setting all these weird kind of codes and stuff like that. And the thing is that the vehicle had been wrecked. Of course, you know, we didn't know that at first. I'm trying to diagnose it, and then the lady's like, yeah, this didn't happen until I hit that deer. It's like, oh, okay, it would have been nice if you would have told me that from the beginning. And found out that the bracket over here in the corner had been replaced by a body shop, and they actually painted over the grounding area. So after fixing that issue, it still had a bunch of different weird codes coming up. And she said that she replaced one of the ignition coils because it had a misfire. Well, it still had that misfire. And I looked at the coil, and it had an aftermarket. Was a Duralast coil, had the big D on the end of the coil there. And I went ahead and swapped the coil with this vehicle. This is the 2021 CX-5 from the last video. And it's the only vehicle on the lot that has these same type of coils. As Mazda switches coils out and stuff. But these are, from what I gather, these are ion sensing coils. And you can't just put any coil in there. And it was a Duralast. It looked just like this one, only this one doesn't have the big D on it. And this is definitely aftermarket coil. But I swapped the coil with one of these, and it fixed everything. So we don't know. This thing is aftermarket coils. We're gonna start pulling these coils out, coils and plugs. And this has Mazda spark plugs in it. It's got Mazda ignition coils. We're gonna swap them out. We're gonna put them in the other vehicle. And we're gonna see what happens. Okay, so you got to be careful taking spark plugs out and putting them in these Skyactiv engines. I don't know why, they just seem to be very delicate. And so take the plugs out and put them in by hand. Don't use something like this on the spark plugs, because it seems like they just like to crack. And I don't know if that's why those were cracked, maybe, but it could definitely be an issue. Let's start this thing up and see if this does anything. Okay, I'm gonna get in here and I'm gonna clear these codes, start it up, and see if these the proper ignition coils and spark plugs will fix this issue. So I am going to go, this is the IDS system. I'm gonna go over here, hit clear codes. Are you sure you want to clear the codes? Yes. And so it's clearing the codes, it'll clear the codes, and then it'll recheck them, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, if you put aftermarket ignition coils, you could cause all kinds of weird issues. Is that weird? That's weird, right? Mazda uses ion sensing coils, and that's my guess as to why. I mean, I'm not a Mazda engineer, so I have no idea why this stuff works the way it does, and why it sets certain codes. You know, if an ignition coil was bad, it should be set in a misfire code or something. So the only thing I can think of is they are ion sensing coils, and maybe the aftermarket coils, they don't do the ion sensing part, you know, properly, or they're not sending the right information back to the PCM. The PCM freaks out. Maybe it's shorting it down or something, and maybe that's why other modules are yelling, hey, I'm getting invalid data from the ECM PCM, you know. I mean, I have no idea. Why does it do that? The coils look fairly brand new already, but you know, maybe they didn't work. We'll find out. Yeah, okay, so there's something weird going on here, because I just cleared the codes, it rechecked them, and I'm still getting these codes, invalid data from ABS. Why is it getting invalid data from ABS? So maybe it's not the ignition coil. Let me start it up and see if it is still flashing everything. Start it up, and yeah, it's still. Sure enough, there's a check engine light, traction control light, charging light. It says it's not charging. Smart brakes system malfunction. Forward front radar sensor malfunction. Forward's smart city brake support malfunction. So maybe it has nothing to do with ignition coils. You know, I'm just going off of what happened with that CX-5. That was a weird issue. It had all this same sort of codes and stuff coming up, and it was one ignition coil, one Duralast ignition coil, and that was it. It caused all these issues. So let me think. We'll probably have to get into the diagnostic on this and see what happens. It's weird because it is kind of acting like, okay, this is another weird issue with Mazda, and I'm not talking about just the 2009 Mazda 6, you know, even the newer, you know, 21 CX-5, you know, would probably happen to a CX-90. I would not be surprised. And what it is, if you accidentally leave the airbox open, it'll set codes for smart city brake support, front radar sensor malfunction, you know, lack of communication. It'll set all kinds of weird codes, and all you did was forget to latch the airbox. And I'll show you what I mean. It's an easy thing to do. So I'll show you what I've seen it many times, and I've also seen this issue where people put aftermarket parts on and that are supposed to fit the vehicle, but for some reason, because it's aftermarket part, Mazda just it's like, you know, it's not part of me, get it out, you know, or something. I don't know. It just does not work with it, with Mazda. So be very wary about putting aftermarket parts in your Mazda CX or your Mazda Skyactive engine, because it just does weird things. So let me show you what the main accident that happens with this airbox. Okay, so right now you can see the airbox is closed, you know, on that side. But if someone were to come in here, unclick these things, pull this out, right? Like they're gonna check the engine air filter, and this engine air filter looks brand new. And then they went to go close it, right? Let's see if I can even do it. And latch this thing down. Latch it down right there. So it's latched here and it's latched there, but I didn't get the hooks underneath on this side. So you see how it's actually open. Just that alone will cause the entire thing to freak out, you know? Front radar. Why is the front radar barking about no communication when the airbox is stuck open? How does that make any sense? You know, it's got to be something, some way that Mazda has this thing wired up. And hey, look at this. This mass airflow sensor. That is not a Mazda mass airflow sensor. That can be an issue right there. How do I know? Look at this. Let's walk over here. This is I already told you, it's the 21 Mazda CX-5. And let me get a light right here. You see, can you see right there? See that Mazda emblem right there on the mass airflow? Yeah, that's what they're supposed to look like. So let's swap out this mass airflow sensor. That could definitely cause an issue. He's got an aftermarket mass airflow sensor in there. Why did he do that? I don't know. Why do you go to, you know, the AutoZone or the parts store and say, hey, give me a mass airflow sensor. Here you go. Here's the one that'll work. And you put it in and it makes it worse. I've seen it. I've seen it all the time. I mean, it's not like I see it every once in a while. I see it all the time. The customer has an issue, you know, and it's not working right. Something's not working right. Their mass airflow sensor, you know, let's just say in this case, the mass airflow sensor starts setting a code, and it's starting to run funny or whatever, and the customer checks his codes or takes it down to AutoZone or whatever and checks the codes, and it says, sure enough, mass airflow sensor, there's an issue with it or whatever. And for the most part, they don't diagnose it. They're just like, hey, just throw a part at it, you know? So then they get an aftermarket mass airflow sensor, brand new, stick it in there, same issue. But, so then they're like, well, what can it be? It's not the mass airflow sensor. Yeah, it is. You just took a bad mass airflow sensor out and you put another bad one in. I don't know why. Mazda does not like aftermarket sensors, aftermarket parts. I don't know why. It's just weird. It is weird. So, and I mean, me personally, I would not put aftermarket parts in if I didn't have to. You know, I'd always go back with whatever the factory recommended. You know, if I'm working on a GM, I'm probably putting AC Delco plugs in. You know, if my truck was a Ford, I'm probably going to put Fomoco or Ford Motor Company spark plugs or something like that. With Mazda, I'm going to put Mazda plugs in. You know, the early Mazdas had Fomoco plugs because engines were built by Ford, you know. So anyway, I don't want to be ranting so much. Let me get this mass airflow sensor out. Let's stick it in there and let's see what happens. Okay, I got the box put back in the way it's supposed to be. And let me take this aftermarket mass airflow sensor out. With that, can't read it. But yeah, this is most definitely aftermarket mass airflow. It looks brand new. And this is the old Mazda one. I'm gonna put in there. I say old, it's just used, came from that 21 CX-5. It's probably never been replaced before. But I know that CX-5, 21 CX-5 runs good. So let's plug this in. Okay. Let's go and clear the codes. Let's clear the codes, see if they clear. And then if they do, we'll know where they're on to something. So I'll turn the key on. Clear the code right there. Do you want to clear the code? Are you sure? Yeah. Okay. Clearing the codes, then it's going to read the codes, and then we'll see. And if this fixes it, I'm not really going to be surprised because I've seen many aftermarket mass airflow sensors just like this. I just put a mass airflow sensor in and it didn't fix it. So I'm taking it to the dealer. You bring it in, he's like, hey, you need a mass airflow. What do you mean? I just put a mass airflow in it. Yeah, but that's an aftermarket one. Well, so? It's cheaper, you know. Yeah, but you have to put the Mazda one. And I mean, back and forth, you can imagine. You know, how would you feel? You know, you needed a mass airflow sensor. He's like, hey, I'm gonna save a couple bucks. I'm going down to AutoZone or whatever. And you get one, you put it in, you're still having issues. Like, I'm trying to save money. Now I gotta go to the dealer. And then the dealer calls you and says, hey, you need a new mass airflow sensor. And like, you know, how would you feel? I just put that in. I just bought that brand new from AutoZone. You know, that's a brand new sensor. And then the technician argues with you and says, yeah, but it's not Mazda sensor. And no, I'm not being biased. You know, I try not to be biased. It's just a look at this. Right, I got no codes at all. Setting. I mean, seriously, right? That's, how weird is that? So, let me start it up. Runs fine. I don't have a check engine light. I got no traction control light. What happened to the battery? You know, and where's the battery light? You know, what about the smart city brake support and the radar and the cruise control, and where did all that go? You know, I mean, so so just so you know, I took the battery charger, I hooked it up to the our tester rather, you know, which is also a charger. I hooked the Mazda tester up. I checked to see if that battery was charging, if the alternator was charging, you know, because I got, you know, messages all over the place saying, hey, pull over to the side of the road, you know, the battery's not charging, pull over to a safe place and stop. And I went ahead and I checked the alternator, and yeah, it's charging. It was charging fine. It was getting enough juice, you know. It was the battery was charged up. It was charging. It was working fine. Yet we got these things flashing all over the place saying, hey, pull over, your battery's not charging. It's like, what is the deal with that? And smart city brake support, Mazda radar, cruise control, traction control, ABS, what is going on? And all it was is a bad mass airflow. Well, I don't know, it wasn't not necessarily bad, it's brand new, you know, from aftermarket parts store. So yeah, you might think a little bit before you go and start putting an aftermarket sensor or parts into you know, your Mazda Skyactive engine, you know, and why, I don't know. I mean, this is the reason why. This is the only reason I can think of. I think it's a good enough reason, you know, because you're just gonna cause yourself all kinds of suffering, you know, later on, you know, maybe. I don't know. So now that I have the mass airflow in there and it's fixed all this stuff, I'm going to put the original spark plugs and aftermarket coils back in and see how it runs. And if it's running the same way, then I will I'll definitely sell a mass airflow sensor to the customer and see, you know, if he wants to do it. Last time I told him he needed something, he just took his car, you know, and put aftermarket stuff. So, and I'm also going to recommend those spark plugs because they're cracked. You know, if the coils and the plugs work fine, I'm still going to recommend the plugs because they got cracks in the porcelain. So let me do that. Let me sell this thing to the customer and see what they want to do. Okay, guys, round two. As you can imagine, it's been a couple days. On that Mazda 6, we got the customer to agree to replacing the spark plugs and the mass airflow sensor. So those are on order. Those will be here tomorrow, and we'll get them in and we'll see what happens. Just to let you know, I did put those aftermarket coils back on with the cracked spark plugs and with the mass airflow that I borrowed from this one right here, and it ran fine. But we're going to replace those plugs. They're aftermarket and they're cracked. Now the ignition coils, we'll see what happens. Hopefully it works fine, but like I said, this is round two. I got other problems with other vehicles, so And this is, you know, more as to, you know, why you should be careful about what you put in your Skyactive engine, right? So right here I have a 2016 CX-5. Got this is the 21 CX-5 from the last video. This is a 2018 CX-5, and right out here, that is a 2021. Yeah, this is 2021 CX-30. Okay, 21 CX-30, 21 CX-5. So why do I have these vehicles? So that CX-30 out there I stole off the lot, just like this one right here. I stole this one off the lot, so I could borrow parts from it. So let me tell you the story about this one. It's a 2016 CX-5. So I would have filmed this, but it would have been boring, and you would have most definitely seen my frustration. So let me walk over here. I'll talk about that one. So the vehicle came from another dealership, not a Mazda dealership, and it had a code P0600 in it, and that is for serial communication data. It doesn't say much about it, you know, serial communication. When you look into the flow chart, the flow charts are real small, very short, and basically it's saying there's an internal malfunction in the PCM. So the flow chart says clear the code and drive it. Does the code come back? Well, yeah, the code comes right back. Replace the PCM, and that's it. Clear the code, drive it, code comes back, replace the PCM. So I, you know, told the other dealership, you know, hey, it needs a PCM. They're like, oh, no problem. Here's a PCM. They sent me a PCM, and it was a PCM sent from Parts Direct or something like that. It was a used PCM. Yeah, you can put used PCMs in these things as long as it's the right part number. You can actually put them in there. We can force as-built data, and we can program the VIN for the vehicle into the old PCM. We can wipe it clean. And so, okay, you know, and whenever you replace a PCM in these Mazdas, you have to reprogram the keys, and you have to have 2 keys. You have to. Otherwise, it'll never start. Now, that's just the way Mazda does it. I don't know why. So they brought their 2 keys. I programmed the PCM they brought me. Got a program, forced as-built data, I did a complete parameter reset. I programmed the 2 keys. I went and I drove it, and the check engine light came back on. And it was a P0600, it was the same code. And I'm like, that's because it has an aftermarket or used PCM. We need to put a new PCM, as far as I knew. You know, we need to put a new PCM. So they go, okay, we'll spend the money, we'll put a brand new PCM. So we got a new PCM. Did the same thing, forced as-built data, complete parameter reset, programmed the keys, went and drove it, P0600, same code came up. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? The vehicle runs perfectly fine. No misfires, nothing, no lack of power, no going into limp mode, nothing. It runs perfectly fine. It just sets a check engine light. So I contacted Techline, and the guy put me on hold for a while. You know, it's like, what's going on? It's like I reprogrammed the PCM, I replaced the PCM, has the same code coming up for internal PCM malfunction. And so he came back and he's like, okay, this is what you want to do. And I'm guessing he was talking to the engineers at Mazda, and they probably told him this. So like, force as-built data, do a complete parameter reset, and check for aftermarket ignition coils. And I'm like, okay, wait. I've already forced as-built data and did a complete parameter reset whenever I programmed the PCM. So you want me to do it again? And he paused and he goes, and check for aftermarket ignition coils. It's like, okay. So I checked the ignition coils, and it's got aftermarket ignition coils in it. So turns out that the ignition coils in a 2016 CX-5 and a 2021 CX-5, both 2.5 liters. They're different ignition coils, but the ignition coils for a CX-5, 2021 CX-5, 2018 CX-5, it's the same ignition coil, but the ignition coil for 2021 CX-30 and 2016 CX-5 is the same ignition coil. Why? What does it make a difference? Well, The difference is the 21 CX5 and the 18 CX5 have cylinder deactivation, and the 2016 CX5 and the 2021 CX30 do not have cylinder deactivation, so the ignition coils are different. Anyway, I took the ignition coils from the CX30 and I swapped them with the aftermarket ignition coils that were in that 2016 CX5. It had 4 aftermarket ignition coils. I swapped them, I cleared the code. I didn't do that force as built data and stuff because I already did that. And I drove it, and sure enough, the code is not coming back. So, I mean, there you go. Internal PCM malfunction because it had bad ignition coil. Well, they weren't bad, they were just aftermarket, and it ran perfectly fine. So there's another one right there, and that's on me. I mean, I have no idea. I did exactly what the flowchart said to do. That's blowing me away. Why is this happening right now? You know, 2016, you know, it's had plenty of time to put aftermarket ignition coils and have stuff go wrong. Why is it happening now? This is 2024. I mean, end of 2024 even. So that's kind of weird. This one right here, this is a 2018 CX5, and it does not have aftermarket ignition coils. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can show you this. I don't know if you can see that, but right there is the Mazda emblem, and they all have it. So it does not have aftermarket ignition coils. It has a Mazda mass airflow sensor, and it's doing the same thing. Well, it's not doing exactly the same thing. It's doing the same thing that I had one do a while back, that I put one ignition coil on, and I was talking about that earlier in the video. So let's go drive this thing, and I'll show you what it's doing. First, I need to get that 16 CX5 out of the way so I can put this thing over on IDS. I'll show you what codes are in it, because I think the codes are still in there from the last time I drove it. I'll show you all the codes that are coming up, and then we'll drive it and I'll show you what it's doing, because you take off, everything's fine, all of a sudden, wham, it goes into limp mode. You have no power at all. You got all these lights coming on. Let's see if we can get it to happen. Whenever that happens, you got to pull on the side of the road, turn the vehicle off, start it up, and then just very slowly creep back, you know. So let me get that out of the way. I'll show you what codes we got, and let's see if we can get this thing to act up, and let's see if we can swap some coils, or maybe the mass airflow or something. These all have Mazda parts, but one of them's bad. Yeah, let me do that and I'll get you back. Okay, right here we got this 2018 CX5. I pull up the codes, and if you can see this ABS code right here, invalid data, ECM, PCM, CMU. Oh, okay, that's just the display. The thing has ghost touch. Front sensing camera is invalid data received from ABS. In the PCM, it shows the number 3 misfire is detected. Smart city brake support, software and compatibility, vehicle dynamics, control module, start stop unit, patch transmit. Oh, okay, so their transmitter is has a low battery. TCM, invalid data from the PCM. Sound familiar? It's the same codes that we had on that Mazda 6. So I'm going to clear these codes. I'm going to go over here, wipe the slate clean. Get that little eraser going, and let's go and drive it and see if I can get it to act up, and then we'll see if these codes reset, and then we'll try and swap some stuff from this 21 Mazda 5 CX5 over here, and we'll see what fixes it. That's weird to have that number 3 misfire. Why number 3? You saw that all the coils were Mazda coils. Maybe there's an issue with that number 3 ignition coil that's causing some kind of, and I think it has to do with the ion sensing part of the ignition coils, and it's sending some information back to the PCM. That's just what I think. The guy from Techline did not tell me why aftermarket ignition coils would cause that issue with that PCM. He just said, check and see if it's got them. And that tells me, hey, if it's got them, get them out, you know. So The codes are cleared. Let me get this thing together and we'll go out and drive it and see if I can get it to act up, and I'll show you what it's doing. Okay, it's kind of late in the day. It's actually after 5 o'clock, so I don't know what this traffic's gonna be like. It is a nasty day. It's dark, it's raining. So hopefully I can get this thing to act up. So I'm just gonna hold the camera, and what I need to do is I need to just go out and drive it like normal, you know, put the pedal to the floor, you know what I mean, and see what happens. So get on the highway, let's see. Watch it not act up on me. Of course. Oh, we're driving. Of course, before it just happened right away. It happened to me right away. Let's see if I can get this thing to act up. Okay, so that time I could actually feel what felt kind of like a misfire under heavy load. And it's jerking a little bit. Yeah, under heavy load, I could feel the misfire. But, and then it pops right back, and I got plenty of power. Well, if this happens on the highway, I may have to pull off the road. It is not acting up on me. Okay, honestly, I think that number 3 ignition coil, I think it's having an issue, and whenever it does, it sends some kind of weird feedback. This is just my guess. It sends some kind of weird feedback to the PCM, causing the thing to just freak out and go crazy and go into limp mode and everything. And it's not doing it right now. So, and of course I'm getting into some traffic. Yeah, we'll have to try again later. Probably have to try again tomorrow. In which case, why would I even put this part of the video out? Because it's just a waste of time. Unless it happens right now. I can definitely feel a misfire on heavy load. And it's kind of jerking a little bit, but I'm not getting any check engine light. I'm not getting any other lights or anything like that. And right now I'm sitting in heavy traffic, so if it were to freak out, maybe it just needs to warm up really good. I mean, other than jerking a little bit and then having like a misfire on their heavy load, it seems to be running fine. I think what it's doing is it's tolerating it right now, but it's going to get to a point where it's just going to give up and say, that's it. Then it just freaks out. So let's get back to the shop, and we'll see if we got any codes for misfires, maybe a multiple misfire or something like that. So Let's go. Okay, it's doing it right now. I don't know if you see the checking the light blinking, traction control. I'm pulling on the side of the road right now. I have absolutely no power. The thing is misfiring. I put my foot to the floor and I'm not going anywhere. It's misfiring big time. Smart city brake system malfunction. Forward city brake support malfunction. Check it on, it's blinking because it's misfiring. I am going to I'm gonna turn the vehicle off, start it back up. Okay, so all that shut off. I have more power. I just gotta take it easy. It's gonna be hard for me to get back on the road with all these people. Oh God, okay. I'll see you back in the shop. Well, as you can imagine, it's the next day. Shoot going on and being told and all. I hooked this thing up, and these are the codes we have. They're pretty much the same codes. Same codes that we had before. ECM, invalid data. This one right here is the one that I want to show you. Okay, so it shows cylinder 3 misfires detected. So it definitely had a misfire, and it was cylinder number 3. So why is all of this happening? I mean, I have the same codes that I had before. Invalid data received from ECM, PCM, you know, in the ABS system, in the front or the forward sensing camera, the transmission control module says ECM, PCM, invalid data. And the only PCM code I have is that number 3 misfire. So, I mean, why is it happening? I don't know. The only thing I can think of is we know it has Mazda coils on it. Maybe that number 3 ignition coil, something's going on with it, and it's sending the wrong signal back to the PCM. My guess is it's an ion sensing part of the coil that's sending some wrong information back to the PCM. It's freaking the PCM out, bringing it down, and then other modules are barking, saying, hey, I can't get proper data from the ECM, PCM. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap one ignition coil, just number 3, and I'm going to swap it from this 21 CX5, because it's the same ignition coil, and I'm going to clear the code, and I'm going to go drive it and see if it happens again. And if it doesn't happen again, it's just a bad ignition coil. But this is a lot to go through just to find a bad ignition coil, especially if you don't know what you're doing. You could go into each of these codes and start trying to diagnose the control area network, find out why modules aren't talking to each other correctly. So this is most definitely misleading. It's just a weird thing. I'm gonna go ahead and clear the code. I'm gonna put that coil on there, and I'm gonna go drive the heck out of it and see if it comes back and see what happens. Okay, here's what's going on. So I drove this vehicle, and it has this same issue. I swapped the number 3 ignition coil out, and I got the same thing happen. It feels like there's like a misfire when you're driving, like a ignition coil that's arcing, or maybe it's a spark plug. So that's kind of weird. That would be a first in this endeavor to try and figure out what the heck is going on with aftermarket ignition coils and mass airflows and putting aftermarket parts on, although this vehicle does not have the aftermarket parts on it. The customer was wondering what the heck is going on. It's like, what can I do or what would cause this type of issue? And I told him, as far as I know, mass airflow sensor bad, bad ignition coil, aftermarket ignition coils. I told him aftermarket parts, The misfire could be spark plugs or whatever. He told me replace everything. He said put a new mass airflow, put new spark plugs in it, ignition coil, whatever it needs. Just go ahead and do it. So rather than just throwing everything on it like that, I wanted to try and get into it and figure out, narrow it down, try and figure out what's going on. Because if I just throw everything on it and then it fixes it, what fixed it? I don't know. So I'm gonna pull this plug out, this number 3 spark plug out, and see what it looks like. Maybe it's arcing, because with the brand new coil in it, it still is having the issue. And I haven't looked at these plugs. I imagine they're probably factory spark plugs, and this is a good coil. So let's see what we got in here. Oh wait, that is the wrong. There's a wrong one. Definitely do not want to do that. So just in case you're going to replace spark plugs in your Skyactive engine, normal spark plugs, 5/8 spark plug. Not Kia, not Skyactive. This is, what is this? Where does this say? What is it? What size? It's a 14 millimeter socket. And I guarantee you, you take this 5/8 spark plug socket, you stick it down there, use something like this to try and run it in to take it out. What's going to happen is this spark plug socket is going to get stuck in the head. Ask me how I know. It gets stuck in the head and you can't get it out. You're going to be pulling the valve cover off, trying to grab it with something to pull it out. It is a real pain. I mean, it is an unbelievable pain. So yeah, don't jam your spark plug socket in there. What is going on with this? I can't grab the plug. So maybe the porcelain's broken on this. I can't see it. I gotta get my head in here, see what is going on. What am I stepping on? Oh yeah, yeah. The spark plug's broken. Let me see how I can get you in here and show you what I'm looking at. Okay, hopefully you can see down in there, the porcelain is broken on that plug, and that is what is causing the whole issue. Are you kidding me? Let me get this plug out and let's look at it. Okay, I'm gonna try and blow air in here, see if I can blow that piece of porcelain out of there, because it's in the way. Just so if I can get it to move enough to be able to get my spark plug socket around it. Nope, it is not. I'm gonna have to try and fish that thing out of there. See if I can. There it is. Okay, so this, I don't know if you can see that. Yep, that is part of the spark plug. It's porcelain on the spark plug. Let me see if I can get it's down in there now. Yep, I got it on there. So, oh my God. I mean, it was definitely misfiring, under heavy load. You could feel it kind of misfiring just a little bit, not very bad. Usually once it warmed up, it was like a spark plug or ignition coil that was arcing. And that's what it felt like, but it wasn't setting misfire codes or anything. The only time it actually set the misfire code is when it set the codes for everything else, the smart brake, city support, and lane departure warning, and all that stuff. That's what it was setting, and then it would set that code. And this thing's kind of hot. Yep, and it is a Mazda plug. So, you see that portion right there? Yeah, it's hot. And right here, that is carbon tracing right there. On that black portion right there, this crack is coming down. That's where it's arcing. And yeah, that was the cause. That's the cause of everything. Is that ridiculous? I mean, that's ridiculous, right? I mean, that's a spark plug, and it's a Mazda plug. No aftermarket parts on this vehicle. I mean, as far as all this stuff goes, yet it's setting those other codes. You know, how does the ABS not have proper communication or getting proper information from the ECM, PCM because of a spark plug that's arcing? How does that make any sense? It's just, this is just a Mazda thing. You know, it has to be. It's just the way that the thing's wired up, you know. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna replace this coil right here, because I told the guy and he bought it, you know. So we're gonna put a new coil. We're gonna replace all the spark plugs. I got Mazda plugs. Look at this. It's a fancy schmancy Mazda box, you know, make it look classy, you know. That's something that they did a couple years ago. Changed the way the boxes looked and stuff. So I'm gonna put all new spark plugs in it. I'm gonna replace this one ignition coil, and I'm gonna replace this mass airflow, because that's what the guy wanted to do. The engine air filter is full of dirt and dust, so we're gonna put that in too and get this one done. We're still waiting for some parts. Mass airflow sensor should come in today. It may be here already. I need to go to parts and check. We also got that Mazda 6 that we're replacing all the spark plugs on it, and we're replacing the mass airflow. That one still has aftermarket ignition coils, and we're gonna go with those aftermarket ignition coils, see what happens with that one. Yeah, let me get this all put together, and let's see what happens. Okay, I thought maybe I'd just show you this real quick. I don't know if y'all noticed that when I was showing codes on these vehicles, there's one code that keeps popping up is in the start-stop unit is code B13D3, something like that. It has to do with the transmitter below threshold, voltage below threshold code or whatever. That's because the battery in the advanced key fob it's weak. And it's also usually will put a message on your cluster saying that your key fob battery is getting low. You need to change it. So, of course, the customer, you know, bought the battery. So I'm going to show you how to do that, just in case you don't. It's pretty easy. You may know how to do it. I'm going to show you anyway. I might as well, since I'm doing it. So this is how we do this, and it is, like I said, it's pretty easy. So what we're gonna do is pull this key out like that, grab this inside right here, so you can see that. I'm going to try and pull it up on the inside like that, which gives me a little room right here. I'm just gonna stick this small screwdriver in there, sticking it in there, just kind of twisting till it pops open. And right inside here is the battery, and it is a CR 2025, and it just comes right out just like that. CR 2025. And here is the part number for Mazda. If you want to use Mazda, it doesn't have to be Mazda. You could, you know, go down to Walmart, buy the battery, or anywhere, the parts store maybe. Oops, don't get them mixed up. So that's Panasonic. That's what came out of the Mazda package. This one is Energizer. So I'm gonna stick this side down, right? This says positive side. I don't know if you can see, yeah, the positive goes up. You got these little things poking up in there. I'm just gonna stick it under this lip right there. Just stick it in there, and that's it. This cover, just like this little O-ring right here, holds the cover in place. You just pop that in, just like that. Take the old cover, stick it on there, squeeze it together, and shove this back in there, and then we're done. It's working. So, pretty easy. Okay, let's recap a little bit here. So, this is the vehicle that has the aftermarket mass airflow sensor in it. It also has aftermarket ignition coils. I did, in fact, put those spark plugs. Got the auto light spark plugs that got the cracks in it. I'm going to replace them. I got new spark plugs right here. And I did put those auto light spark plugs back in here with the aftermarket ignition coils and the mass airflow that was swapped from the 21 CX5, and it ran fine. I'm going to replace the plugs anyway because they're aftermarket and they're cracked. The porcelain's cracked in them. And I'm going to replace the mass airflow sensor because it's got an aftermarket mass airflow. And from what we can tell, this is what's causing this issue, is the mass airflow sensor. Now, the 2016 CX5, the one with the PCM that was showing that it had bad internal malfunction inside the PCM. We replaced PCMs, it still didn't fix it. Turns out it had bad ignition coils. Well, it had aftermarket ignition coils. It ran fine, but the aftermarket ignition coils were fixing it whenever we replaced the ignition coils with the ones that we took off the 21 CX30. So I'm trying not to get my vehicles mixed up here. So yeah, we're going to put new ignition coils in that one. We're still waiting for a customer to authorize that, but that's going to fix that, ignition coils in that one. So why isn't this one having issues with the aftermarket ignition coils? I don't know. I am going to replace the spark plugs, and I'm going to replace the mass airflow sensor, and then I'm going to drive it and find out what happens. The 2018 CX5, I put brand new plugs in that. I did replace the one ignition coil from number 3 because I talked to the customer about it. He said to do it or whatever, and I replaced the mass airflow sensor. That was all authorized before we even actually diagnosed the vehicle, and we found that the number 3 spark plug, it was Mazda plugs, the spark plug was cracked, and that vehicle had the same issue pretty much that this one has. You know, only this one will set codes right away without even running the engine. It'll set codes because of the aftermarket mass airflow sensor. So yeah, we're all caught up on this, on what's going on. So that one, the 2018 is done. I fixed all that. I drove it. Absolutely no problems at all. It's fine. It's gone. Customers got the vehicle. This one, I'm going to replace the plugs, and I'm going to replace the mass airflow, like I said, and then we'll drive it and see if these aftermarket ignition coils give us any problems. So, and if they don't, we're just going to add that to the "this is weird" list. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you with pulling out coils and plugs and stuff like that. We've seen that before. So let me just get these in real quick and the mass airflow, and then I'll drive it and we'll see what happens. So let's check it out. Okay guys, we're back here at the IDS. Are you surprised? This is the Mazda 6. I think it's a 2009. Yeah, 2009 Mazda 6 that we started the video out with. This is the one that I just got through putting spark plugs in because had the aftermarket plugs that were cracked, and we put the mass airflow sensor in. So I was confident that it was going to work, but no, it's having problems. It is backfiring, misfiring, it's jumping and stuff whenever you put a load on the engine. Other than that, it runs perfectly fine. I'm not getting any codes at all. You know, the only codes I have is in that start-stop unit because it needs a battery in the transmitter, you know, and the customer is going to do that himself. So it has the aftermarket coils, and that's why it has the issue. Before, I stole the coils out of the 2021 CX-5 that fit in there. I put the good Mazda plugs, the Mazda coils, and I had stole the mass airflow sensor in it, and I drove it, and it drove perfectly fine. Then I put the old plugs and old coils on it with the Mazda mass airflow, and I didn't drive it, so that's my fault, my bad. Sorry guys, I didn't drive it. I just let the thing run, and it's like, it seems fine. I wasn't setting code, so I just assumed that, hey, this one's gonna work with aftermarket coils. No, it's not. It's the coils are causing an issue. It's not setting any codes, not right now, but it is backfiring and doing all kinds of weird stuff. So now I'm gonna sell coils to the customer, and no sense in dragging out a already long video. So those aftermarket ignition coils, they're just not going to work in the 2009 Mazda 6 Skyactive engine. And we already talked about the 2016 CX-5, that the aftermarket ignition coils were causing us to believe that the PCM was bad. And that one ran fine, perfectly fine, just check engine light coming on, coils, aftermarket coils. And then it was the 2018 CX-5 that had the non-aftermarket ignition coils, spark plugs, and mass airflow and stuff, and it had a cracked spark plug, and that was causing the issue in that one, and we fixed that one too. So putting aftermarket parts onto your Skyactive engine, don't do it. It seems like a bold statement, but I mean, here's the proof. It's your vehicle. Do what you want to do, but just be aware of these circumstances right here. In the past, if your mass airflow was going out, you would have a code set for system running too lean, system running too rich, something like that. And after you inspected everything and found nothing wrong, usually, hey, it's probably a bad mass airflow. You put a mass airflow in it and fixes it, Or sometimes if the mass airflow is making the vehicle run bad, you could disconnect the mass airflow and it would drive fine. It would be a little bit sluggish. You drive with a check engine light, but it would drive fine. That was a way of diagnosing the mass airflow. It's running bad, it won't stay running, disconnect the mass airflow. Hey, everything's running good. It's a bad mass airflow. Now, the Skyactiv engine, disconnect the mass airflow sensor, you're gonna have codes set for smart city brake support, forward sensing camera, lane departure warning, a bunch of stuff like that. You're gonna have a light coming on saying, hey, pull over because the battery ain't charging. I mean, you don't believe me? Go disconnect the mass airflow on your Skyactiv engine and see what happens. Just be ready to clear the codes, though, if you do that. And it's gonna have codes in other systems, not just the PCM. And aftermarket ignition coils, seriously? Telling you to replace the PCM because you got aftermarket ignition coils? I mean, guys, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just showing you what I found. It is ridiculous. I do believe it is. It's ridiculous that I have to tell you, don't put aftermarket parts in your Skyactiv engine. And what about crank position sensor? What about cam position sensor? What about oil pressure sending unit? Can you put those in aftermarket? I don't know. I mean, why is this happening? I have no idea. So I just want to let you know so you can make a better decision. And I want to thank you for sticking around and watching this video. I appreciate the heck out of each and every one of you. If you haven't subscribed, please do that. And I will see you in the next one.